Yo, JSF here. This video is gonna be a lot different. I was gonna say a little different, but it's gonna be a lot different than what I usually cover. So don't mind the background of the Towers of Time, but I wanted to talk about something completely different that's not related to online, gameplay, any of that. I wanted to talk about NetherRealm and their games and what we think is next. What is the next game NetherRealm is going to make? Now, I know a lot of people have been talking about this lately, and a lot of people are just like, they're going to do Marvel vs. DC. Or some people are thinking, oh, they're going to do Injustice 3 next. But I'm here to kind of talk about there being more options than that, and kind of what some of those more options are, right? Because they've teased a lot of things, especially Ed Boon on Twitter. God, that was crazy. The teleports are nuts. But yeah, he sees a lot of things on Twitter, right? He's teased a lot of things in interviews, said a lot of things, and he's talked about more than just these two possibilities. But I do want to start with Injustice 3 because that's probably the most obvious answer that people are thinking of if you don't know very much of what's going on. You're thinking, oh, they do Mortal Kombat, they do Injustice, so after doing, you know, MK11, after Injustice 2, they're probably going to do Injustice 3. Now, that I would normally agree, it is very possible, right? I think there are some things in this game that are very, like, reminiscent of Injustice, or, like, kind of can, like, work to, like, okay, let me say this. I think Aaron Black was a beta test for Deadshot, right? MKX Aaron Black, this is just my personal opinion. I think MKX Aaron Black with the gunshots that shoot up in the air and bounce off the coins was like an early test for Deadshot's gunshots that shoot off the ground, right? That's just what I think. That's just how my brain works. So when I saw that move, I was like, oh, it's a beta test. So when I see Kotal Khan transform into a cat in his moves in this game, my brain says that's a beta test for Beast Boy. So it's like, oh shit, you guys probably are doing a DC game next, and you probably are doing that to test out, can we have our character turned into an animal as part of their moveset, and how would that work? You know, that type of thing. So that's where my brain is going with that. So I do think that that lends some credence to Injustice 3, or just a DC game, right? DC versus Marvel does have DC characters in it. But the obvious answer, or the most, like, the thing that most people are probably just thinking off rip is Injustice 3 is next. But there have been some things that kind of lean towards Injustice maybe not being next. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but Joker has an intro with himself in this game. And then it's a Joker and another, when he has a mirror match against Joker. And he says, only two of us, that's an Injustice. And he says, like, imagine what we could do with a third. And people were thinking, oh wow, Injustice 3, that's a tease for Injustice 3. And I believe Ed Boon came out, or somebody from NetherRealm came out and said, hey, yo, yeah, what did Ed Boon first? He said, this Joker dialogue is not hinting at anything related to Injustice. Any reference is purely coincidental. That's what Ed Boon said on Twitter. So he was not teasing Injustice 3 with that. I find it weird that he would say he's not teasing it if it's the next game, right? If it's the next thing we're gonna see revealed in a few months or maybe next year. I find it kind of weird that he would say no, he's not teasing it, even though he said Injustice. And the other thing that I think about, because I overthink everything, is he said only two of us. That, what did he say? What's the exact phrasing? Only two of us, that's an Injustice. What if that means only two, as in Injustice only has two games, and there's not a third Injustice? Like, that's why he calls it an Injustice. Like, what if that's the play on words that we didn't even catch? Like, you know what I mean? So there are some sides that seem like it. There are some sides that seem not like it. But I did want to talk about some of the other things that are possible, right? Like, aside from Injustice, we'll get back to DC Comics because, you know, we got some stuff to talk about. But what else is a possibility? What the hell else could NetherRealm do? Well, they could do Shaolin Monks. And here's how I feel, right? And here's why this is interesting to me, because as you can see, they obviously plan to, like Ed Boon has said, they plan to support Mortal Kombat 11 for longer than any other game they've made, right? by NetherRealm, any game, that means since MK9 onward, they want to support this game longer. And in a recent interview, forgive me, I forget the name of what the interview, I think it was with Jeff Keighley. He says that they're working on things that aren't the next Mortal Kombat game, like or Injustice, right? So what if they're working on a Shaolin Monks reboot or a Shaolin Monks remaster, right? That wouldn't take the full. Now, the reason I say that, like, you could still be updating and adding to this game while working on Shaolin Monks, especially if it's just like a remaster and it's not a full new game. It's not like all hands on deck, we can't work on anything else, we need to completely focus on this game. They would probably still be able to add to this game. They don't have to redesign anything, right? They can just add new characters and stuff. They don't have to change what already exists. They can just add expansions, right? And this is the first time they've ever added a story mode, so it would beg the question, like, wait, are you really gonna have a fighting game ready next year? You just did a story mode expansion a year after this game came out, which has never been done before, right? Not to mention, in the story mode for this game, they do tease Shaolin Monks and Fire and Ice with, I believe, chapters 3 and 4 of the story mode, right? Chapter 3 is Kung Lao and Liu Kang. Chapter 4 is Sub-Zero and Scorpion, Fire and Ice, right? And for those who don't know, Fire and Ice was the canceled sequel to MK Shaolin Monks. It was supposed to have a sequel that was called Fire and Ice, and yeah, that was like a whole thing. And a lot of fans have been saying for years that we want them to either make a new Shaolin Monks or remaster Shaolin Monks. Like, it was really cool. And the other thing that makes me think that this is a possibility, now remember, everything that I'm mentioning is just a possibility. I'm not saying this is what's happening. I don't know. I don't work in NetherRealm. I just wanted to go over some of the possibilities, right? If you look at the crypt in this game, the crypt in this game is more like in a 3D beat 'em up RPG than anything ever made, right? They've never had a crypt where it's like a 3D game where you have a character, you run around, you use weapons and you hit things, and, like, you know, it's almost like its own little mini game. And it's like, what if that was like an early test of, like, hey, you think we could use this as like a template for like a potential Shaolin Monks game in the future or a remaster? Like, I think the crypt in this game could be used as like a baseline for that. Now, that's just my brain and me speculating, but I do want to mention, where is that article that I have? I have all this stuff on my phone, so I gotta find it. But during Brazil game show last year, Ed Boon was asked about potentially remastering old games, and he said, we've talked about it. Shaolin Monks, and he specifically said, you know, Shaolin Monks is one of the fans want remastered, and we're thinking of it. We have nothing that we want to announce, like he always fucking says, but it's something we'd like to see. It's something that they have some interest in, but, you know, maybe they haven't found the right time to do it. Now, what if the time to do that is now or soon, right? While Mortal Kombat 11 is still going strong, according to leaks and data mining, it seems like they have files in the game to add new characters and make certain characters playable, like Sector. Now, I don't know if that's really gonna happen because Ash Williams had files in the data that were in this game, but that didn't end up happening. So we gotta see what the future holds. But yeah, I think that's a possibility that a lot of people. I haven't seen anybody talk about it. I've seen people talk about Injustice, Marvel, but I haven't seen anybody talk about Shaolin Monks, right? And then another possibility that I think, maybe not as much, but it's been talked about before, is NetherRealm doing a horror movie fighting game, right? And we've all talked about this before. NetherRealm talked about it before. It would be really cool if they did a fighting game with like horror movie characters or something along those lines, right? Like a bunch of iconic movie characters fighting and killing each other. And I think what lends a little more credence to that now more than anything, wow, I'm really bad at this. What lends a little more credence to that now is that you add characters like RoboCop, right? Because at first it was like in MK9 there was Freddy Krueger, right? It was Kratos from God of War, but there was Freddy Krueger. And then in MKX you had Jason Voorhees. You're like, oh, another horror movie character. Then you had Alien and Predator, and you're like, oh shit. But then in this game you get Terminator and you get RoboCop, and it's like, what if it kind of changes a little bit from just horror movie villains to like, you know, iconic action movie characters, and whether they're villains, whether they're heroes, whether they're whatever. You throw Michael Myers in there. We had Leatherface and MKX as well. You throw Pennywise in there. There are a lot of other characters, you know. You, depending on how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole, you can pull out like 20 characters and make a video game. And it's something that's some interest has been expressed in the past. And even Ed Boon personally put up a poll on Twitter one day. This was last year, I believe. Yeah, in March of 2019, right? Put up a poll and said, just for fun, like he always says, no plans currently for any of these. What would you like to see most? Horror movie fighters, MK versus Street Fighter, or Marvel versus DC, right? Now, he said before that, well, he said plenty of times that the Mortal Kombat team was down for MK versus Street Fighter, but since then he's kind of said that the person he knew at Capcom that he would try to like feed that idea to is gone, and it's probably less likely now. So there hasn't been much in the way of MK versus Street Fighter. Don't really know if that'll happen, but the horror movie idea is been talked about as recent as a year ago, right? Now, I'm not saying that it's gonna happen. That's not what I'm saying at all. Wow, I'm really dead. That's crazy. Not gonna say that it's gonna happen, but it's another possibility. You never know, right? What is NRS cooking now? They, like I said, Ed Boon said recently that they're working on things that aren't. They got some things in the oven that aren't Injustice and aren't Mortal Kombat. So that leads us to our last and final thing that I'm going to talk about today: Marvel versus DC. Now, as cool as this sounds, I don't know if a NetherRealm Marvel vs. DC game is the way I would want to picture it. I would want it more as a versus game because there's so many iconic characters, and a game like this, a 1v1 NetherRealm style game, won't really do everyone justice. But who am I kidding? If Marvel vs. DC ever comes out, I'm buying it. It's gonna be great. I'm buying it. I'm playing it. I'm learning everything about it. Right? How could I not? So the interesting thing about this is, when this game was coming out, got you. Wow, of course you break Shiva. You're lucky about these little gingerbread grenades in Shao Kahn. Am I gonna lose my first match? Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm actually playing these matches live, so I'm like actually reacting to it. But no, Ed Boon did say when he did his rapid fire question interview for the release of MK11. He said that he had spoken to Marvel about making a fighting game. Specifically, he did say that he spoke to Marvel about it, which is interesting because then you go back to his tweet about what game would you guys like to see most, and about the horror movie fighters, MK vs. Street Fighter, and Marvel vs. DC, and Marvel vs. DC got the most votes by a good amount, right? Not to mention, he also asked when Injustice 2 was out in 2018, he also put up a poll on Twitter, and Ed Boon just puts up polls on Twitter and kind of like gauge the audience a little bit. Nothing crazy. He doesn't confirm or deny anything, but he did ask if people wanted to see Black Panther as DLC in Injustice 2, and one of the answers was he's Marvel. What do you mean? You can't do that. The other answer was yes, and like obviously people overwhelmingly voted yes, and it's just another tease to Marvel versus DC happening. Now, for if you want to get technical about it, right, and talk about licensing and rights and all that kind of stuff, Capcom had the rights to Marvel characters and Marvel fighting games, but they lost it. Then Marvel Infinite happened, but Marvel Infinite was written off as a failure, right? It was a commercial critical failure. It was pretty much panned. The game came out in September, I believe, of 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Forgive me. But by December, they had already written it off. The final DLC came out by January. They were done supporting the game. I think they fixed an Infinite or something in the game, and that was it. Like they had like a bug fix patch, and then they haven't touched the game since. So I wouldn't find it shocking if they lost the rights to that IP. I mean, I think Marvel vs. Capcom 4, if you do that, could be a great game and you could fix the franchise, but that's a different video, which I will talk about one day if anybody wants to hear it. But it kind of lends some credence, right? If Capcom is not developing Marvel fighting games anymore, who is? I don't think Marvel is just saying, hey, we're giving up on the fighting game space. Now they could try to do Marvel vs. Capcom 4 now that they have all the rights to their characters and give that a go, or they could try to give NetherRealm a go. And I think that's where that meeting comes in that Ed Boon talked about, right? Probably weighing their options, like, what would you do if you had a Marvel fighting game? How would you go about that, right? And that's been around. Ed Boon's teased some things, mentioned some Marvel characters, mentioned a Marvel fighting game, or Marvel versus DC, right? And then it kind of comes back to what I said about the Kotal Khan thing seeming like a beta test for Beast Boy. Some things in the game seeming like, oh, this might be a setup for Injustice 3 or Marvel versus DC. Like, you know, like I know Injustice ended up on a cliffhanger, so I would like to think they're going to do an Injustice again, but it's a very, very real possibility that we get a Marvel vs. DC game. Very, very possible. But again, remember, all of this is speculation based on what we've seen, right? Those of us who aren't in the industry and don't work for the developer, we don't know. I know that Ed Boon has shot down a hint at Injustice, which I think is a little weird. He mentioned that he took a meeting with Marvel about a fighting game. He's asked people if they want to see a Marvel vs. DC game. He asked people if they wanted to see a Marvel character as a DLC in a DC fighting game. And all of the community response is always going to be yes. Because of course we want to see Marvel vs. DC. Are you kidding me? And if this game ever came out, it'd make a ton of money. That's not even in the question. And if you think, I'm sure there's somebody who's going to think, oh, well, NetherRealm is owned by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers owns DC. They don't really fuck with Marvel. They're not doing that. Well, they did a Lego Marvel game, and that's owned by Warner Brothers, and they managed to do a few Lego Marvel games, right? There's a Lego Marvel game, a Lego Avengers game, and obviously they got Lego everything WB on, like Lego Batman with all DC characters and all that kind of stuff. So if you get the right talks going, you get the right contract situation, it's not impossible to get the rights, to get the licensing to it. And I mean, it's looking pretty likely, to be honest, which would be really, really cool. I don't want to sound like I'm not excited. I think Marvel vs. DC could be an amazing game. I wonder how they would make it, though, because if it's not Mortal Kombat, it's going to play a little different, right? And if it's not deemed Injustice, if it's deemed as like a separate Marvel vs. DC game, not Injustice versus whatever, and it's going to be different, like the gameplay mechanics are going to be interesting and different. So I wonder how that would go. But yeah, what do you guys think, man? I was thinking about this for a little while. I was watching a lot of videos, but I wanted to wait a little bit and gather a little more information and see what else is going on. But today I haven't really been able to play online. I've been having issues, so I was wondering, let's see, you know. And like I said earlier, I haven't seen anybody talk about the other options. It's possible that they're just doing a Shaolin Monks remaster or doing that in between these two games, and that's what they have cooking that nobody expects, right? It could just be that. And I'd be happy with that because I love Shaolin Monks. And then they get to Injustice. Or maybe they do run with the horror movie fighting game thing that people have been talking about for years. Like, I think these are all very real possibilities. But we're going to see. I think the only thing we know we're not getting next is MK12. I know we're not getting that next year or probably the year after either. But yeah, let me know what y'all think. If y'all like this kind of video where I kind of just speculate and talk about news and potential leaks, or not leaks, but potential information or what's coming next, or maybe even talk about leaks. But yeah, if you guys like this kind of video, I'll probably do more of it. Because I'm always thinking about stuff, right? Like I said, I theory craft and theory fight a lot. So I'm always thinking about stuff, and then when I see all this, I just see everybody talking about Marvel fighting game or Marvel vs. DC fighting game, and I'm like, you guys are totally forgetting about the horror fighting game, the Shaolin Monks possibility. I didn't even bring up Killer Instinct versus Mortal Kombat, which is a possibility. Killer Instinct has been dormant, and the whole community is saying bring back KI, but that would take some talks because that's owned by Xbox, and it would probably have to be Xbox exclusive. But if it's Mortal Kombat, it's not going to be console exclusive. So that would get tricky around there. But anyway, like I said, let me know what y'all think. Wow. I forgot that she bleeds in her intro. What is she doing? If you like the video, please leave a like. Let me know. Let me know if y'all enjoyed this. This video is a little different, so That will be important to me. Subscribe if you haven't already, if you like the content on the channel. We're almost at 200 subs. I really appreciate every single one of y'all. Thank you. And if you really like the content, follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/J_S_F. Yeah, I'll be streaming very soon, like within a few days. I'm waiting on PlayStation to call me back to get my PS4 checked out, so I stop having stream issues, but I'm already there. But anyway, JSF, I'm outie. Y'all stay safe and subscribe for more content.